It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We have a lot to talk about. New iPads, Apple Pay, Yosemite. Fortunately, we've got the experts for you. Rene, Ritchie, and Andy Ihnatko. MacBreak Weekly is next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 425, recorded October 21st, 2014. Area man uses Apple Pay. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Personal Capital. With Personal Capital, you'll finally have all your financial life in one place and get a clear view of everything you own. Best of all, it's free. To sign up, go to personalcapital.com/MacBreak. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code MacBreak. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 42 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 20% off image subscription packages on your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code MacBreak1014. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover all the Apple news, and there's a lot of it today. Rene Ritchie joins us from imore.com and his office in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Hello, Rene.
Hey, Leo. I made it back. Your side of the world is much warmer than my side of the world.
Is it? It's not snowing in Montreal yet, is it?
No, but it's cold, and you have such lovely weather in
Actually,
the
we got
area.
the cold weather is starting to come. You know, it's like 60 degrees now. It's freezing.
I must have left it behind. I apologize.
Also here from Baston, or the environs, somewhere in New England, in his secret lair, is Andy Ihnatko.
Greetings from the Great White Northeast.
From the Chicago Sun-Times. What's the picture behind you there?
This is from New York Comic-Con about a couple weeks ago. A whole group of people that just decided to dress up as the entire Scooby-Doo cast, plus the old caretaker dressed up as a ghoul.
He's not a ghoul. It's the old caretaker.
No, notice the lady dressed up as Scooby, which I did not even notice when I took the picture.
I like the girl, though. She's got it.
Changed the relationship between Scooby and Shaggy, I would say.
You're a girl. It does look like Simon Pegg on the right. That's not Simon Pegg on the right, is it?
That is not Simon Pegg on the right.
It does look like it, though.
Whenever I go to, one of the things I enjoy about cons is taking pictures of people in costume, and I always, just in the back of my mind, I'm playing a game called, you know who you should cosplay as? Like, even sometimes, so yes, he should be cosplaying as Shaun of the Dead character, but I passed by someone who I almost wanted to just stop and interrupt what they're doing and say, I know that you're not in costume, but you could so totally be David Bowie in the 1970s. You could be Ziggy Stardust, you could be the Thin White Duke, you can be that freaky guy in the clown makeup. You should totally go as David Bowie next time. I don't even want to be paid for my consultancy fee and telling you what to do, but please.
Please. Is that on your Flickr stream, that picture?
Yeah.
Andy I on Flickr, if you follow
Andy
him.
I on Flickr.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Usually I post instead of posting waiting a couple weeks and then posting an album of 100 pictures, I've seemed to be now just posting one a day. Because
I like
now,
this.
Now people have the patience to see one photo a day when I give them, here's a half hour of your life to get through all this stuff and everything I've written about them.
But this really stands out. Velma is hot. You're right. Chat room says Velma's hot. She's hot. And that doesn't look so much like Simon Pegg once you see the blood on his face. All right, let us move on, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a lot to talk about. Apple released its quarterly and fiscal year results yesterday, and I think it's a walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth, frankly. It looks pretty good. I'll be doing baseball-themed metaphors throughout the day today. Looks pretty good. Apple market share, its highest since 1995.
Yeah.
Still single figures. I mean, it's not like they got 20% market share, but still the Mac surged.
Yeah.
Really good performance for the Mac. Fourth quarter surge of 21% year over year. Revenue growth up 18% year over year. Luca Maestri, the new CFO, says we saw great demand in the back-to-school season for both desktops and portables, especially strong growth from MacBook Pro and MacBook Air, double-digit Mac growth across most markets around the world. That's important, with particular impressive performance in emerging markets where Mac sales were up, get this, 46%. Is this the halo effect? Are they using iPhones now and they're going, hey, I should see what else Apple offers?
Don't know about emerging markets, but we have to pay attention to the fact that I think there was a lot of pent-up demand for the Mac Pro, and so they sold lots and lots of those to people who weren't just like routinely buying Macs. These are people who had been deferring that purchase for about a year and a half.
Did they break it down by model? The Mac Pro?
No. But I'm guessing that if there's a reason, it's certainly possible for there to be a halo effect. But I believe that must have contributed because that's probably one of the. I can't think of another Mac release that has been so eagerly anticipated as that one. When we had people who were just saying, "I'm done waiting for you. I'm going to now build a compatible Macintosh tower out of available components and hack the operating system to run on it." That's how long I've been waiting for you to release an update to the Mac Pro.
Adrian Toxic Health Stu Hughes says, he's going to be that to me forever now, says the momentum may just be starting because remember the iMac is the new 5K iMac's not in this.
One thing that I think also is that while the point bumps weren't that impressive this year, they price cut many of the Macs. They dropped them by $100. And even though it's only $100 over the price of a Mac, that's a pretty good incentive.
Yeah. I do think that, especially in emerging markets, that Mac or Apple awareness is driven by iPhone and iPad, don't you think?
Yeah, there's a halo, and the devices. I mean, there's a continuum now where people are introduced to those devices, and then, people thought that we'd be going from the trucks to the cars, but there's still a lot of things that trucks are better for. And when you combine, even the new Mac Mini that was introduced, it's gone back to its original price, $499, $100 cheaper again. When you combine those two things, I think that gets people moving.
By the way, that price point is probably the more important bullet point when you talk about the Mac Mini than the fact that you can't update the RAM, that it's not, it's basically a MacBook Air in a different enclosure. A lot of the geeks were disappointed. They wanted a better Mac Mini, but the price point is where Apple was headed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing that really stands out to you when you look at the Mac Mini lineup. There is such a huge disparity between the entry-level model and the very next step up. I mean, the middle model and then the best model they look like sister and brother. This one looks like a cousin in terms of its relative power, the processor it uses, the amount of resources that are available to it. And I stifled my reflex to say, oh, of course, it's a woefully underpowered machine. But no, it's not underpowered. It'll run everything just perfectly fine. And if this is a sign of what Apple had to do to get the price down below $500, I'm all for it. Because the next level up is a big jump. It's like 50% more expensive, a little less than 50% more expensive. So that's going to be a very important $200 for a lot of people. So if it lets people choose a Mac instead of a even better configured Windows machine that's a desktop box, even though they wanted a Mac, that's a great move.
It's interesting because it's at the same price point as the entry-level iPad.
Yep.
Which is kind of interesting.
And you don't get a screen.
Yeah. Let's talk iPhone. So iPhone 6 was out for less than 2 weeks in this fourth quarter. So I don't know how much the iPhone 6, well, we could actually do the math because they said how
it was launch quarter, though. I mean, it was the launch weeks, which are always high.
That makes a big deal, even if it's just the first, couple of weeks of the launch. Yeah. It was the iPhone's third best quarter ever. They sold 39.3 million phones in 3 months. That's up 12% compared to the previous quarter, 16% year over year.
It's a license to mint money, Leo.
It really is.
Yeah. It really just puts you in the mind of why Apple really wants to move into consumer goods like the watch, because how many desktops can they? A lot of people will have a couple $100 and they'll have a few $100 just to blow on cool stuff. So it's, I think that this time next year we could be looking at some numbers that are like, now we must fear Apple and beg for its forgiveness for past things we might have said about it.
Yeah, I'm starting to worry. Cumulative iPhone sales, which is kind of a silly figure, but they did put out a graph, so I'm going to show it. They now have sold close to, this is wrong, 600 million iPhones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
And it's not as many as Android phones, but wow, are those profitable iPhones?
and also sold by one company. I encountered that figure at 400 million a while ago, and I had to double check it because it doesn't make sense that this company could sell anything in a number that could be expressed as a fraction of $1 billion, and now it's over half a billion. Over half a billion. Not half $1 billion. Half a billion items times how much money they're making on every phone, and it's like we praise our new Apple overlords. As a member of, as a host on a popular podcast, I can do much to sway public opinion and to get law enforcement in line for your new directives. I can be quite useful to you, Apple. Please don't crush me like the ant that I am.
Apple's margins are up too. There were some concern in the market and among users and analysts that the margins seemed to be tumbling, but they were up for the first time in some quarters. And revenues for the iPhone were up 20%. Compared to last quarter, 21% year over year. Profits up even more.
They're selling more of the higher margin products now, which is good for them.
Wow. Of course, beats analysts' expectations. You always want to do that. Apple's very good at damping down the expectations and then overperforming, which is good for the stock price. Usually, the stock market buys on the rumor, and there's been plenty of those, and sells on the news. The news was, of course, yesterday. But the stock price was going up. It's up another 2% today.
And once again, they could not make enough to sell. I think Tim Cook said it wasn't on the same planet, the supply that they could make to reach the demand. If they could have made, how many could they have sold if they were in balance? It's ludicrous numbers.
In a way, they should be punished a little bit for that they make such a great product and they can't make enough of them to sell them all.
But that's I would quit any boss who said, "Oh, I know you sold 40 million, but really, you could have sold 42 million."
Yeah,
we've only filled that swimming pool up to an inch above overflowing with gold doubloons. I want your resignation letter on my desk by 2 p.m. I bet you'll screw that one up too.
Now, of course, the iPad, mixed in with all this wonderful news. I think it was not only a record quarter, but it was a record year, fiscal year. Is that right? I should look up the actual numbers.
Yeah.
I think they said this was the best year ever.
You kind of want that every year.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess, yeah.
And the iPhone by itself is capable of driving them to that, which, again, is scary. To have such a successful business, but for that to be your most successful business.
Record profits for the fourth quarter, and I think record revenue. We didn't give you the bottom line, which is total sales of $42.1 billion, and a profit on that of $8.5 billion. Yeah, improved profit.
They just can't empty those vaults fast enough.
Gross margin 38% compared to 37% year over year. International sales 60% of the quarter's revenue. Good news for Ireland and the Cayman Islands. A lot of cash could be flowing in.
A lot of good for truck drivers on the money delivery route from the airport to the Apple to the post office box where all the checks go.
I got all the Franklins in the back. iPhone sales up 16.2%. Mac sales up 20%. iPod sales. Oh no, let's save iPod sales. iTunes sales up 8%. Accessories up 12%. Now,
iTunes and App Store is getting really interesting.
Yeah. What do they say? 85 billion apps have been sold?
And the money they're making off of it now. I think people, because for a while you got the feeling that the App Store was being neglected, that the iTunes Store was being neglected, that the technology there wasn't being as improved as fast as device and operating system technology. But if it keeps making money like this, it'll be hard, I think, for even people inside Apple to say, no, we need somebody to take this in its loving hands and propel it forward.
So, of course, iPod sales down 25%. By the way, Apple's told us we're no longer going to break. This is the last time you're going to hear the word iPod sales. We're no longer going to break that out. We are not going to break out retail sales. I don't know why. I think retail sales were very positive. And we're not going to break out watch sales when the watch comes out. Luca Maestri said, no. So, but, of course the iPod's tumbling. They only sold 2.62 million of them.
Yeah. The
Shocking.
iPod Touch hasn't been updated in 3 years now.
And they're still selling. I mean, even that, it's like, but you're still selling millions of them. And the iPad down for the third quarter, in the most, of course, of all, 12.5%. But remember, they didn't have a new iPad. Everybody knew there'd be a new iPad this month. They still sold 12 million. That's more than a million a week.
Yeah.
So they're selling them. And Tim Cook said, and I think he really wanted to. I think one of the analysts on the call at the end of the call said, "Well, what's going on, Tim, with the iPad? Are you worried?" And Tim Cook was very clear, and I think said exactly the right thing, that he's still very bullish on the iPad. He actually gave a very long answer. I'll quote a little bit of it. He said, "I take a step back on iPad. I know there's a lot of negative commentary in the market, but I have a different perspective. We have sold 247 million over the first 4 years. That's more than the first 4 years of the iPhone. So that's a good point." He says, to me, I view it as a speed bump and, the lack of growth year over year, and not a huge issue. That said, we do want to grow. We don't like negative numbers on these things. He said, I know some of you think that the market is saturated. But from the data he sees, he says, no, my market data says the top 6 countries for Apple in terms of revenue generation all had more than 50% iPads sold to new buyers. The worst was 50%. In some countries, 70% sold to new buyers. That means more new people are coming in to buy iPads. Well, that to me confirms the saturation, but okay, because that's the point. The people who are still buying don't yet have them. He says, well, we're not saturated. We think there are a lot of potential new buyers for. Oh, okay. So not everybody has an iPad, but those who have iPads, I think, are maybe not upgrading as fast as one would hope. He says, we don't know yet. This is a new product. He said, it's hard to say what the upgrade cycle will be. We know what it is for a phone. We know what it is for a computer, but we've only had 4 years of iPad sales. He says, in response to suggestions that products are cannibalizing iPad sales, he says maybe people are buying Macs or iPhones instead of an iPad. But, hey, I don't have a problem with that. They're still buying something, which is good. I think Apple's been very good about that. Yeah, Apple's been willing to cannibalize one for the other. Yeah. But he did finally say, I'm very bullish on where we could take the iPad over time.
They'd rather cannibalize themselves and have another company do it.
We're going to continue to invest in the product pipeline. We're continuing to invest in distribution. And, of course, we won't see the impact of the new iPads until next quarter.
Yeah. I do feel like the iPad Air is poised, maybe even in 2015, to become something very different from what it is right now, which is the larger version of the iPad mini. I think that Apple, with some software updates and also some making a larger device, can really emphatically start talking about this as a productivity tool. It was the thing that really spoke out to me at the event live stream of the event last week, was that the apps that they showed off for the iPad, the third-party apps, they weren't this soft focus. What will your verse be today? And look, kids are drawing pictures on. Isn't that adorable, seeing them drawing pictures? Here's an art app that's about as powerful as Photoshop for photo editing, for image creation, and another app that's kind of similar to that. So I don't know if this is I don't know if this is a prediction of something, but it made me think that this would be how Apple would do it if they wanted to next year have a larger sized iPad, have a new version of iOS that really did allow you to run apps side by side, or even in a tiled configuration. Because as you pointed out, the cheapest iPad they make is the same amount of money as the cheapest Mac that they make. And I think that if there's a reason why sales are a little bit flat, it's because people have stopped. It's the glorification halo around the iPad is kind of dimmed right now. It's no longer the new cool thing that people have never seen before and they've got to try out. Now it is a $500 computer that people now have to justify the expense of a $500 computer. And that's how they say, well, it'd be nice to have this cool big tablet for games and stuff like that, but I only have about $600 total to spend on to upgrade my system, so I think I'll get a Windows laptop instead of something like that. But if they were able to make that change and simply say, here is a 12-inch version of the iPad Air, and here's why you'd want to have this instead of the notebook that you thought you were going to be buying sometime this year, I think that would really be the shot in the arm. It would be a greater distinction between the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. And it would also maybe even reverse the trend to, I think a lot of people, once they were presented with an option of we can either give you a 9.7-inch tablet the size of a sheet of paper, or a smaller tablet that is small enough that you could probably get inside some of the pockets you own. If not, it's easy to be it's easy to find a pouch to put it in. Once presented with that option and the smaller tablets were on the market, people seem to be voting very strongly for smaller tablets. So I think that's a way to sort of smooth out the bump in the road that Tim's been talking about.
Anything else we could say about the?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting.
Go ahead.
I think there's a couple of things that are interesting. One is that when Steve Jobs made the original case for the iPad, he said that it had to earn its right to exist between the iPhone and the Mac. And back then, the iPhone was very small, and it was, there still wasn't as much you could do with it. And the Mac was still more expensive and didn't have very long battery life. But now you have iPhone 6 Plus, which, turn it sideways, it's almost a tiny iPad. And you have the MacBook Air, which gets, phenomenal battery life, and the price is lower than ever. And that squeezes the iPads in the middle. It squeezes the iPad Mini, which had become the most popular iPad. And even though it's got like 100% customer satisfaction rating, more people are looking at, I don't maybe need to carry both. I can just carry the iPhone. And I think that also sort of liberates the iPad a little bit, to Andy's point, where Apple can do more interesting things with it. And showing off Pixelmator, like they did the content-aware fill. They just removed that. I think it was a cow right from the field.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, that's the sort of power that you want when people are looking at the sort of mainstream productivity, where I can't strap a Mac to my back and take it on a bicycle ride with me. I can't take it onto the football field. I can't take it onto the beach, but I certainly can take an iPad and I can still get done all the productivity things I want to do. I can run my company. I can start a company. I can do all these things. I think as we go into next year with things like the iPad Air 2, and if there is an iPad Pro, it'll instead of being stuck in the middle of the iPhone and the Mac, it's going to really create its own identity.
Well, I've always thought the iPad was very interesting. I think the thing that no one predicted was how big the phones would get, and how ubiquitous the phones would be. And the question, the kind of the lasting question that Tim did not.
It's also an acceleration problem.
What is that? What do you mean? Our Skype is just dying.
So if they were going to sell 500 million iPads, if they were going to sell 500 million iPads, they sold so many so quickly, it got to that level very fast. The iPhone, the hockey stick wasn't nearly as big as that. They had more time. So if the speed limit for the iPad right now is 500 million, they just got there super quick, and that's why it's leveled off. But if they can find some other angle for that, they can jumpstart that. It can take it off again.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I also think that people haven't really figured out where a tablet exists in their lives yet, despite the fact that this thing has now been out for 4 or 5. Soon it's going to be at least on the public map for 5 years. The fact that even Microsoft has had problems selling, here is a computer that will run Windows. It is a Windows computer. It hard attaches to a keyboard, so you can make it into a laptop, but you can also detach it and use it like a tablet. Even those are not really setting the world on fire. So I think that everybody's trying to figure out, what do people really want a tablet to do? What role does it play? And there's going to be a whole lot of guessing until they figure out what that is.
Yeah. Well, look, the bottom line is great quarter.
Money.
Money. You can't deny that. And the stock price may not fully reflect that. It also reflects the fact that Apple's very aggressively buying back stock. What do they say? Another $20 billion in the stock buyback. And the market loves that. That bolsters the price up, keeps it up above 100. So very good news for Apple. Did they mention Beats in the? I'm sorry. I hate to bring this up.
No, it's getting even more relevant every time they have another event in which they're allowed. They let themselves do a little Beats in joke, but not talking about why they spent $3 billion on a company. It's becoming increasingly more troubling and interesting.
Well, it's not like they don't have the money. And it's it's like a guy who says,
maybe they spent the money just because, you know what, we've got this. We have no place to put our pinball machines because of all these bags of money in this. If we could get this conference room just cleared out of money, we could finally have that tournament we've been wanting to do.
It's just like it's fun. It's fun money. It's like buying a pool table for the break room. It's like, yeah, we got it. Why not? Let's just do it. Let's see what happens. By the way, an update on Colin Kaepernick, 49ers quarterback. He is now taping over the Beats logo on his headphones, even though everybody clearly knows those are not Bose. But I don't know if he's going to get a fine for that. Let's take a break. When we come back, I do want to, there's so much more to talk about. Apple, there is a little Beats news. Apple wants to get the price down to $5 a month, apparently. That's according to Recode. And that is in response to Spotify offering $5 a month family plans for up to 5 people. $5 per person. I think $5 might be the new $10 when it comes to streaming music. The truth is no artist makes any money at all, anything worth talking about from Spotify or any of the other streaming solutions. And so it's nice because artists never made money. The labels always took it. Now the labels aren't making money either, so there is a little karma in that. I do wonder what's going to happen to music, but
yeah, I was having a conversation with people about this just the other day, that between apps and music and things and services, we have to start training people to expect to pay for things that they value, because this is not a curve that ends well for anybody.
I had that very same conversation with, a little name drop, Paul Simon, a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, the Republican candidate or the musician?
The musician.
Even better.
And both he and Steve Martin were saying we don't make any money on any of the streaming services. It's pennies.
I love how casual you basically put the spotlight on the Paul Simon reference so that we would skip over the Steve Martin reference.
It's a terrible name drop, and I apologize.
No. If I had a personal interaction with Steve Martin, you'd be sick of hearing me hear about it by now. I admire your restraint.
I only bring it up because it's germane. Because here they are, they're working musicians. Steve is too, by the way. Now, I mean, I think that's what he considers his profession. He's a working musician. Certainly, Paul is. And both of them said, we're not going to make any money on streaming music. And Paul said, and I think this is really relevant, he's made his load. He doesn't need any money. But both his kids are musicians. So he says, I care about this because I worry about the next generation of musicians and how they're going to make a living. Yeah. And there is no easy answer to this. And boy, when you see, now Spotify, $5 a month. Beats wants to be $5 a month. That's even less money. Not that the money mattered at this point. I think everybody agreed it wasn't significant. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm sorry, my not only Skype crapping out, but Yosemite's dying. So this might be a good time to take a little break. We'll get everybody dialed back in, and I'll reboot my computer while we talk a little bit. You have forced com.apple.webkit.web content to quit, you bad man, and it's still beach balling on me.
But doesn't that error dialogue look beautiful in that new flat interface with the gloss?
Did you notice, by the way, that if you continue, maybe you don't, maybe you guys use Safari, but if you start using Chrome, I get a little pop-up saying, have you tried Safari? It's really great.
Yeah.
What do you care, Apple? Maybe they do.
I didn't get that. That's weird.
I've got it now on all my systems, and then I just used Safari, and it crashed. So you have your answer. But I have a beautiful, beautiful desktop. You know what? Just sit on about this Mac.
Vibrant.
That's all you need. Gorgeous. Just gorgeous. Just stare at that for a while. Actually, this is a whole 2-year-old laptop, so maybe that's the problem. Our show today brought to you by the very nice folks at Personal Capital. Personal Capital is important for you to know about because you are all, if God willing, and if the creeks don't flood, going to make it to retirement age. And will you have any money left when you do? Well, Personal Capital is all about making that happen. You can get your financial life in order here for free at personalcapital.com/MacBreak. They do have a great iOS app. They have an Android app. They even have an Android Wear app, which means they'll probably have an Apple Watch app when it ships. It is so slick. Why would you want an Apple Watch app? Well, here's what you do. You get all your accounts into Personal Capital so you can get a single-page live real-time dashboard that lets you keep track of everything you own. Your assets, your checking, your charge cards, your investments, all on a single page. Great on a mobile device. What it does on Android Wear, it alerts you if you're in, your stock is tumbling, or it's really great. It's really great, and it's free. You'll see how much you're overpaying in fees, how to reduce those fees, how to balance your 401k, plan for the future. You'll even get tailored advice on optimizing your investments. You couldn't do it better than Personal Capital, so why wait? It just takes a minute to sign up, and there are big dividends, and it is absolutely secure and safe. I've been using it for 2 years now, and I couldn't be happier. Personal Capital gives you total clarity and transparency to make better investment decisions right away. To set up your free account, visit personalcapital.com/MacBreak. Well, I like that one. Your 401k's real-time cost. So you don't think about the costs of maintaining the 401k, the management fees, the commissions. So this gives you a really good idea. I love this. Personalcapital.com/MacBreak. Try it today. And we thank him so much for being a part of the MacBreak Weekly family. All right, let me go back to Chrome for a moment. See if that works. Oy. Are there what is the take on Yosemite right now, Rene? Are people pretty happy with it?
I mean, it's got the same sort of bugs that you find in any just released product, the same you'd find in Mavericks or Mountain Lion or anything like that. But I think most people, most of the time right now, are having a really good experience. It fixes a lot of things. It adds really good features like extensibility and continuity, and it's got people interested because, as we've pointed out, people don't actually like change. They like the perception of change, and when you change the visual design, while they're a little bit adverse to it, it's also not boring anymore, so it feels very fresh and new, and that gives you sort of a honeymoon period.
I agree with that. And, we're all, somebody pointed out, you think it's buggier now? Remember OS 9? Yeah. Remember System 7?
Remember Gmail on Mavericks?
Yeah. I mean, these things happen. So we'll work the bugs out, I'm sure. I have to say, I've been very happy with it. One of the things I love continuity, I love handoff, I love using messages on my desktop and my iPhone. You have to kind of delegate an iPhone to be your phone and your message app for your desktop. You do that in the messages settings on your iPhone. You can actually flip a switch. It says iMessage. iMessages could be set between iPhone and iPad, iPod Touch, and Mac. Once you flip that switch, you'll get a number pop up on the screen on your Mac, which you enter into the iPhone, validating that, in fact, you do have that. Now, I also have text message forwarding, and it says one device. I presume that means I can have multiple devices. Is that right? Let me try it here on my MacBook.
It's terrifically. I mean, I have a bunch of old iPhones scattered around my house to use as extensions now because they just all ring when a call comes in.
Okay, that's an unusual situation. Maybe not. I don't know. So if you turn it on, you get a little. So I could pick. So these are all the Macs associated with my iCloud account, and this is the one at home, the Mac Pro. But I could take one of these other ones and associate it over to iMessages, and then that means they all work. Is that right? They all would answer the phone. They would all send messages, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I have it on a MacBook Pro and a MacBook Air right now. It works great.
We are having such trouble with Rene. Andy, you're okay, right?
I'm fine. Yeah, that's why. That's why I don't want to talk over what Rene is certainly going to say because I know it's going to be interesting
But you did call him back, right, Chad? I wonder if it's us or if it's you.
I've been trying to do speed tests to Toronto to see if there's some sort of hub issue.
Look at that. He looks like Scooby-Doo. Ruh-roh.
But yeah, but Rene has a good point. I have had some difficulty adjusting to the new interface of Yosemite. I'm starting to leaning towards the conclusion that I don't like it. But
really?
So much of it. Well, my difficulty is that after a few months of using it now, my eye still doesn't know. It's I think it does a poor job of cueing me as to where I'm supposed to be looking at any given moment. Like if I leave my desk for a minute to go get a drink, then come back, it takes me a few seconds to realize what's the frontmost window, what's the task in the frontmost window, how is the frontmost window laid out. It really feels like just a plane of like light gray to me with very, very little differentiation among it. But the continuity feature of things ringing elsewhere in your house when you get a phone call is a good example. It's a great feature. And I think, like Rene, I think a lot of people are going to be asking their kids for their old iPhone 5s and 5s back because mommy and daddy need that as a living room phone extension now. You can't use that to play games on anymore. But I got so many responses from people, questions from people asking, how do I upgraded yesterday and now like my iPad keeps ringing and this keeps ringing. How do I turn that feature off? And I will point them toward the solution page to tell them how to turn off that feature on that device, but still saying, why don't you wait a few days? You might find that you actually like the convenience of being able to answer the phone pretty much wherever you go. So that's a risk that Apple was willing to take, that you can't really make a radical change in any way without getting a lot of people honked off. Some of them honked off for good reasons, but some of them honked off because they're not lovers of computers. They're not lovers of technology. They want a car in the driveway where they get in, they put the key where it's supposed to go, it starts up, and they drive it. When you change the shape of the steering wheel, when you change the key in the ignition to a start button, they're saying, I am not here to learn how to drive a brand new car. I'm here just to get to the store. So I think that's where a lot of the pushback is coming from.
Rene has a really good Yosemite hub on imore.com. In fact, he has a good 6-minute video, everything you need to know about Yosemite on that hub. One thing I should point out that the messages handoff that I just showed requires 8.1. So you have to update iOS to 8.1, and then you're going to get even more of this handoff and continuity stuff from Yosemite.
And people are a little bit confused because the handoff, like the actual handoff functionality where you move apps back and forth requires Bluetooth 4.0. The SMS relay requires you to be on the same active network, and the call forwarding requires you to be on the same LAN or WAN. So there's sort of different parameters for each one. But if you have Bluetooth 4.0 and you're on the same network, you should be good for all of them. That's
a really important point. So, for instance, Google Hangouts, which also does SMS and data-based messaging, does it over the network, so you don't have to be on the same Wi-Fi. But in this case, you have to be on this. You have to be at home or at work on the same Wi-Fi network for both your iPhone and your Mac for you to be able, for instance, to send text messages or to receive a phone call, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, and part of that is security. So, like, yeah, the Bluetooth is for proximity because it's a security feature as well. It wants to make sure that you're in physical possession or at least within eyeshot of your device so no one else is getting your web pages or your apps. And the SMS thing, again, this is all part of their security system where they're fairly certain you're the one getting those messages if you're on the same network and logged in. You also have to be logged in with the same, and you have to put in that security code. And that's just to make sure your stuff doesn't leave your devices.
No, and I appreciate Apple doing that.
It doesn't work on older devices. Yeah, it doesn't work on older devices because some of the very old devices, it wasn't a great experience. So like in typical Apple fashion, they just turned it off rather than ship it on spotty or older devices.
You can't, according to imore.com, I've heard of them, you can't just add a Bluetooth interface to an older device either. Handoff won't just work because you have figured out Bluetooth. You do have some information, but it's basically you've got to have the hardware, the right software, in basically a late model Mac, late model iPhone, and the right software on both, most up-to-date software on both. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, it's just because turning it off is easier for them than leaving it on in a state where it would be problematic to people with older hardware and more support costs and more frustration.
And of course, that raises the forced obsolescence cry, but this is how you move ahead.
Yeah. Your old phone works just fine with your old features.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and they would never do that because I think Gruber said this too, they have family members using these machines. The engineers there care deeply about the quality of their software, and they just want to make a good experience on as many devices as they can.
I've been using AirDrop. It now works cross iOS to Yosemite, right? No.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Yeah, iOS 8.
Either that or I was hallucinating last night. But it could happen. You get tired enough sometimes. So that's cool. So now I can share files. That seems to be working much better. It never was cross hardware platforms, but now it is. I think this is a luxury. It's nice. It's not enough reason to say, oh, I have to get all new hardware, though.
Right. I mean, at some point, things break down and you buy a new what's-it, which means that you finally get to see what people have been using for the past year. I think that a problem with a lot of tech journalism, and I certainly take responsibility for this, for whatever role I might play in this, is that we get so excited about these things that we kind of make people want things without encourage them to think that, yes, but do you need to get this right now? Or the fact that you have a perfectly good iPad mini, having Touch ID would be really great, but your iPad mini is working just great for now. And at some point, you're going to drop it. At some point, your kids are going to be clamoring so hard for an iPad of their own that you're just going to hand it to them. And at that point, you'll finally have Touch ID. You don't need to be in a rush to get these things.
We also got 8.1 yesterday, and besides now the SMS relay, which is great, there are some other features. Obviously, Apple Pay. We'll cover that in a second. Let's get to Apple Pay last, because we have actual video of somebody using it. Did you love Jason Snell's article? I love Jason Snell's article in which he says, what does he say? Local man uses Apple Pay. Local man uses Apple Pay to buy groceries.
I replied to him that the real coup is getting area man to use Apple Pay. That's when you know it's really
area man. Jason ran over to his Whole Foods, bought a sandwich. He tells the very, very funny story of his checkout guy, Tyler, who said, "Oh, you're going to try that?" I guess Tyler hadn't seen it yet. Jason says, "Yeah, I'm one of those people," and habitually placed my thumb on the phone as if I were going to unlock it, which was what I was going to do. But instead of doing that, boom, I paid for the groceries. The terminal actually noticed, before he even tapped it or got close to it, noticed him and talked to the iPhone, and he saw on the iPhone screen, pay with Touch ID. And all he had to do was touch that. And then Tyler, his checkout guy, said, "Whoa, I don't know what just happened." As a
security!
Whoa, what'd you do, man? Dude.
Matthew Broderick has just war gamed himself into our terminal.
The paper receipt popped out of the printer's register, and Jason walked home, and he noticed it had also stopped raining. So what a great article. But all right, we're doing Apple Pay. We might as well keep doing it. We have a video. We sent our own Jason Snell, Jeff Needles by name, out to Whole Foods to buy chicken fingers. And this is, I think we could show this video of him buying chicken fingers with his iPhone 6. There it is. So wait a minute, pause that for a moment, because it shows other stuff. If you go back, it shows American Express, it shows Visa Discover, MasterCard's PayPass, and Apple. It has a little Apple logo, Apple Pay.
All you really need to see is that logo in the middle, because that is the universal sign for the technology that the Apple Pay uses. So supposedly, if you don't see the Apple Pay logo, but you do see that little Wi-Fi with the finger next to it, you're good.
It kind of looks like, I don't know, a fish skeleton and a guy picking at it on a plate. But anyway, you know what we're talking about. All right, so go ahead and play this. So did you have to tap it, Jeff? No, you just...
Let's see. What do we do? Oh, see, and it comes up.
It sees it, pops up your credit card. At this point, you could choose a credit card, but Jeff always wants those Starwood points, so he had the credit card. And there you go, and the receipt comes out, and you're done.
We don't need the receipt.
Approved. And you get pumpkin pictures.
Apple Magic.
Apple Magic. So
go ahead.
That's exactly what you want. I mean, it couldn't be much easier. You feel secure because it did need a fingerprint to do it. Although if you had other device, you might have to enter a PIN instead.
Yeah. I mean, I was before the show, I was talking about how this is the best some of the best advertising that Apple can possibly get are all these data breaches. And on the same day that I downloaded iOS 8.1 and got my the iPhone 6 set up for Apple Pay, I also got a phone call from my bank that issues my credit card saying, "Hi, by virtue of the fact that we don't know that your card has been compromised, but we do notice that you shopped at Home Depot at any point in the past year, so we're just going to give you a brand new card with a brand new number." And so, yeah, that underscores the need for a system like this.
That's a pain too, because now you need a new number, which you won't with Apple
Yeah,
Pay, right?
and of course, I already finished like configuring the phone for my old credit card, so it's like I haven't activated the new card yet, but it's going to have to happen. Like I'm going to have to do that tonight.
Let's talk a little bit about that. When you go to your Passbook, you have to launch your Passbook app, and you have to have 8.1. There's a little plus button on it, and you can add passes, as you've always been able to do for tickets and so forth. Or, and this is new, credit and debit cards. Pay with Touch ID using Apple Pay. Add a card. Now, you could enter the data by hand, and as Apple pointed out, you can also take a picture. There's a little camera there. Now, I found some of my cards it can't read. The letters are too glossy or something. But most of the cards it was able to, it's not taking a picture. You actually hold it there, and it scans the number, scans the expiration date and your name. You still have to manually enter the security code on most cards. In fact, on all cards I've tried, because it's on the back or for whatever reason it doesn't try to read it. But it isn't hard to add a card. In some cases, you'll need an authentication app, I'm told.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. Not even, sometimes an app. When I set up mine, I just happened to take the path of least resistance. It said, "Oh, well, you have a credit card attached to your iTunes account. You want to use that?"
That's the first thing you can do right away.
Tap one button, and if I'm told
I think
that
you had to enter in the security code, and that was
exactly
it.
just to just as you do every time you do it. You try to use a new device with a credit card that's attached to iTunes, and then like seconds later, say, "Okay, you're good."
Now, and this is kind of nice. This is the interface. It shows you the cards you've added. Not all cards can be added. Bank of America and USAA, two of the banks I use, their cards hadn't yet been approved.
Yeah, the corporate
Barclay
cards I
card
tried to enter wouldn't work either.
Yeah, I can use my American Express business card. In fact, both my American Express cards, no problem. And Chase cards work, so I have a Chase Visa card, I think, in there. But yeah, so not all your cards will work, but you know, if you have one or two, and if you have a card already on file with iTunes, that will work. Yeah. So that's actually the best place
One thing
to
I'm
start.
curious about, because we have the PayWave on our credit cards and bank cards here, and you can just go and tap, and it works really easily. But every store seems to have a different limit in what they'll allow the NFC to pay for. Some it's 60, some is 70, some is 100. And the icon is always there no matter what. They don't have the good sense to hide it if you can't use it. So you end up tapping and then being frustrated. And I'm hoping because of the Touch ID that it's more authentic, like it's more reliable, and maybe those limits won't be as frustrating.
Somebody in the chat room says that he just got an email from Bank of America saying it does now work. So they're signing up these banks fast, and I would imagine this is one of those things where the banks like there's calls are pouring into Cupertino saying, "Hey, we want to sign up."
Yeah. It's interesting. I talked to people who are like ex-banking people, ex-credit card people from this information is like 4 or 5 years old, but they said, and the stress on the word ex-banking credit card people, and they said that they've done the major issuers have done the math on how much will it cost for us to make credit card fraud a lot harder to pull off versus how much are we paying out for credit card fraud? Because frankly, most people, they catch it, they get invalidated, they get their money back, and they much rather eat the cost of a $300 Xbox that someone charged but wasn't authorized to pay than have to do all this stuff with reissuing cards, putting in new technology, training people up, training support staff, and so it's nice to see that this. I think that with the proliferation and professionalism of these rings of credit card fraudsters, it's now become less expensive for them to finally upgrade their infrastructure to make this sort of stuff harder, these crimes harder to do.
Right.
Yeah, I did notice that my new card is now a chip card. So maybe part of this was, okay, here's an excuse to get everybody upgraded to more secure cards now. So I think that we're definitely seeing something. There's something that's happened behind the scenes where some number on some spreadsheet just went from black to red. And that's why we're seeing such an embracing of these new technologies.
Yeah, maybe it was because I have a B of A business card that it didn't work, because Bank of America does have a big page saying, shop on the go with Apple Pay. It's easy to add your credit card and your debit card. So I'll have to, I have another B of A card. I can try and check it out. No money in that account, but at least I can try it.
It's the future, Leo.
How is it in Canada?
Well, we don't have Apple Pay yet. I mean, we don't have iTunes Radio yet, but we have NFC everywhere. I use my credit card, which is the same functionality to pay for everything. The Sears takes it, gas station takes it. So we're just waiting. We're just waiting on our banks and on Apple. Please do it.
This technology is called EMV. Steve Gibson talked about it on Security Now last week. It stands for Eurocard, MasterCard, Visa, and it's been around for a decade. And apparently, President Obama just yesterday or the day before signed a bill, the Buy Secure Initiative, to speed up adoption of this EMV system in the U.S. So it all is kind of coming together here. The EuroPay, MasterCard, and Visa system is the same system Apple Pay uses. Mm-hmm. So I think we're finally entering the 21st century here in the U.S. And Apple Pay isn't the only way to do it, but what's great is it put it over the top. It said, okay, it's no coincidence that President Obama signs that bill like 2 weeks after Apple announces Apple Pay.
And there's tens of millions of phones on the market immediately that can use it.
Right. Well, and I presume, I have Tap and Pay in most of my Android phones, and I'm just going to have to try and see how they work.
Yeah. Isn't it great, though, that Apple's finally making it, there's a certain amount of credibility that they add to this whole concept. It's not as though that we shouldn't have trusted Tap and Pay before. It's just that, we have a card that has worked for this transaction right. As long as we've had credit cards. Why would we, again, it's like we were talking about earlier, why would we don't want to have to learn something brand new, even if learning something brand new is in our best interest, as long as the old thing is continuing to work. So it's great that Apple is, even for people who don't own iPhones, making them think about alternative payment systems, right. And maybe even causing them to ask themselves and then their bank's website, can my Android phone do that? Well, yes, we have this thing called Google Wallet. Oh, great. How do I set that up? Here we go. And now you're set for Tap and Pay yourself.
So what you're saying, Andy, is basically the United States is like your Uncle Bob, who said, I don't need a new credit card system. This one works fine.
My Uncle Bob say, go get your uncle the beer. You're a good boy. Here you go. don't tell your mom I gave you this $1.
What else is new in 8.1? We're gonna the iCloud, the camera roll is back. What can you explain to me? Is this just semantics, or was there actually some functionality that disappeared in iOS?
People were upset because the camera roll was a giant repository for every photo you'd ever taken, every image you'd ever saved. It was basically it was a poor name for what it was. They called it camera roll, but it had stuff in there that didn't come from your camera. So they tried to make something that to them was more rational, that you would have recent photos in there, and then they'd move on to moments and collections and years over time. And people just looked at it and said, "Oh, my stuff isn't here," and they freaked out.
Right.
So now you have the familiar camera roll back. I don't know if it's going to go on forever anymore because all my stuff was moved out of there to begin with. So I'll have to wait and see. But at least the name is the same, so people no longer think someone is coming to their house and taking their stuff.
Just like Microsoft putting the Start menu back, right? It's something that you don't need, but everybody wanted. So Apple actually, to their credit, turned around a lot faster than Microsoft did. It took Microsoft a couple of years to bring back the Start menu.
Yeah. But wasn't it incredible that could you imagine 3 or 4 years ago, Apple not only reversing themselves on a decision, but also from the stage with a worldwide audience saying, we had a lot of customer feedback. We've decided to put back something we took away because people didn't like what we did. Yeah. It's so easy. And this is not designed as a slam against Apple whatsoever, just as an indication of how much Apple has changed in recent years, that they would have stuck to their guns and just waited out this problem, or they would have made the change in iOS 8.1.2 and just not told anybody about it. And of course, we would have picked up on it. We would have said it, but they would have admitted nothing. It's like the car company that just spontaneously decides that they're going to change to a different model of relay that triggers the airbags on the front of that car that's been on 60 Minutes 3 times the past year. No admission of guilt. We're not saying there was a problem with it, but we just spontaneously decided to use a more expensive component for that.
Yeah.
Well, they put the camera roll back at the same time they took the orientation lock button off the iPad. So you get something, you lose something.
Hey, what is this iCloud photo library we're talking about here, and where does it live?
iCloud settings.
Okay, and it's in beta, so use it with caution. What do it do?
So it's nearline storage for your photos. So it's using Apple's CloudKit, and it takes your photos and it keeps the most recent and frequently accessed ones on your device locally, and the rest of them it stores on Apple's cloud. It shows you thumbnails, and then when you tap on them, it'll download them and show them to you. So it lets you, instead of having your entire phone taken up by photos, which happens to a lot of people, You get just like, again, you get the most recently accessed and most frequent photos on your device, and the rest is all stored up with however much iCloud storage you decided to purchase.
See, that's good. I mean, I don't need that because I have Google+, Facebook, Dropbox are all back, and my transporter. They're all backing up my photos automatically from all my phones. But for a lot of people, normal people, they're all, they have, first of all, normal people have one phone, and then they fill the phone up with pictures, and they never take them off. They never back it up. They lose the phone. They go, what? So turning this on is backing up the photos, but even more, it's freeing up space on your phone, which is great.
Yeah,
I know so many people who have no space on their phone because they just have thousands of pictures on there, right? Yeah, I'm just looking at one right now. So what we should do is we go to Photos and Cameras in the settings. At the top there, if you have 8.1, iCloud Photo Library Beta. So if I switch that on, automatically upload and store your entire library in iCloud to access photos and videos. So it's uploading all the pictures on this iPhone, and it's going to take off the big photo and put the thumbnail there. Do I lose quality when I tap it?
It will store. Yeah, it'll store the original file, including raw files, if that's what you have. But it will put a device-size optimized image on your computer.
Perfect. That's just what you want. And then there's some more settings here.
I would caution people though. Like you should have Yosemite and iOS 8 on all your devices because you can only access it with devices running Yosemite or iOS 8.
Yeah. That's kind of the gotcha for me. I really wish they'd found a way. I know it's a basic infrastructure. It's not just an app they've updated, but you really have to go all in across all your devices, and that's what's keeping me from upgrading to this feature right now. Because I still, for instance, have one. I have one leftover Mac that's even still running. Mountain Lion, not because I refuse to upgrade it to Mavericks, but because it's working fine. It's a low-use machine. I've got apps that I've been installing on that for the past like 3 or 4 years. I don't want to have to find out what is not compatible with the latest operating system. And this is a bit of an inconvenience because it's going to force me to not just simply flip a switch and enjoy photo syncing, but now go through every single device I own and make that decision about either locking this thing out of access to photos or having to walk through an administration problem of trying to make sure that it will still do the things I needed to do after I make that upgrade.
Can I log into iCloud and see them?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's still beta or not, but you can go to iCloud.com and there is a photo library there. It might be the beta iCloud though.
Yeah, that is one of the nicer features of this compared to what the pictures roll used to be, that it really does make it much easier to simply say, I've been taking photos and now they're available to multiple devices. I think it's even exposed to the Windows version of iCloud Drive, if I'm not mistaken.
It is not in the beta. It's in the regular iCloud Drive. There is a beta symbol on that icon. So if you go to your iCloud, you log into iCloud.com, you'll see this new Photos icon, and it says beta in the corner. By the way, they've also added an iCloud Drive icon, which is good, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then my library's empty because it's not yet added, or somehow. I mean, even though these are uploading, it's still uploading, so it hasn't added.
And it'll work on Photos for Mac when that ships in the spring.
Neat. And then, okay, so underneath this, there's a checkbox now that I've turned it on that says optimize photo storage, or sorry, phone storage. That's the thing where it deletes the pictures off.
So there's two. Yeah, one is that it doesn't store any of them locally, but you can also have the option of it storing like screen size optimized pictures because you may not need the 8 megapixel version just to look at on your phone. Yeah. So it'll scale it down on the cloud and you
That's
give
what
you
it
that
says.
version.
This phone is storing device optimized versions. Turn on, download and keep originals to store full resolution photos in your iPhone. So you do have some granularity. You can say, don't delete them. Let's keep them. In fact, let's keep all of them, even from other iPhones or other sources. And then upload to my photo stream. That's the traditional photo stream, right?
Well, there's two. So it's poorly named. You have the photo stream, which is a traditional photo stream. Then you have the shared photo stream, which is Apple's little social network where you can like and comment on each other's photos.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I turn off photo stream. I don't want. I don't know what devices it's going to, so I don't want to take.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah, take any chances there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I really do think, I can't think of another parallel set of upgrades between iOS 8 and Yosemite where I don't think there's a lot of danger involved, but this is like, it's not difficult, but it's like swapping out the doorbell on your front door where you have to, there are ways to really, it's a simple thing, but you have to really take steps to make sure that you're not screwing things up. as you go. Like you have to cut power to the house just in case this will screw up. Right. I really have set aside when I'm telling people that I haven't upgraded to Yosemite yet on my real computers yet, and it's not so much a vote against the stability of the operating system, which is fairly stable. There are problems, but first month there are going to be problems. You know, that's not unusual. It's more like I want to make sure. I'm sorry. Better comparison is I had to change. You know, the valve for the water flow for the cutoff valve for your washing machine. It's an easy thing to replace, but I went without a washing machine for about 2 or 3 weeks because I felt as though I needed to book an entire day of my time, because if everything goes well, this will take me 20 minutes to do. If anything goes wrong in any of these steps, I'm going to need the rest of the day available to fix it and leave the water to the house turned off until I go get that part and braze a new component in someplace else. These upgrades are pretty much the same way. If nothing goes wrong, it's easy, 20 minutes, painless. You'll have a really great time. You'll enjoy these new features. But if you screw things up, you're going to wonder, where did all the pictures of my newborn kid being born on the first day last year go away? It's not on my phone anymore. You have to pretty much walk yourself through the process so that you're sure that you're in control of everything, and that any disaster that might happen is going to be either totally mitigated or something that you're willing to accept for the virtuous application of iOS 8 and Yosemite.
One thing that's really cool, though, about all the stuff that didn't happen in the past, you know, previously you'd have iOS updates and you'd have Mac updates. But for things like extensibility and continuity, there is one manager who's in charge of both features across iOS and the Mac, and they ship them for both iOS and the Mac. And if you go to the developer page and you watch some of the sessions, like I think Ian Baird and Aki, I'm forgetting his last name, gave a session on extensibility, you see how they did it the same on iOS and on the Mac, even though it was probably easier to do it one way on one system and one on the other, so that not only can developers develop the same extensions and the same, you know, make their apps do continuity together, but everyone has the same way of using it. A widget is a widget on iOS and it's on OS 10. And that's that same halo effect we were talking about earlier, where it's not exactly the same, but it feels familiar, it feels comfortable. And I think that is one of the strengths of doing the updates the way they did them this year.
Do you recommend, well, it sounds like Andy's saying don't rush.
My take would be there's probably no reason for you to make sure you get it done this weekend. Right. I think there's always a good reason to wait 1 month, 1 calendar month, 30 days after any major operating release, Mac, Windows, Android, anything, just to make sure that when you do your Google search 3 weeks in, you see what all the showstoppers are, and you realize that, oh, this one app that I really desperately need is not compatible, so I better hold off longer. And then when you do it, again, make sure it's not the sort of thing where I've got 30 minutes to do this before I need to grab my phone, grab my MacBook, and head to the airport for my week in Hawaii, because it's possible that at the end of 20 minutes, you will not have working stuff, and now you will not have a phone for your week-long trip. So make sure you're doing it on a day when, if you have to sit and troubleshoot things for a couple hours or make a trip to the Apple Store, that's a day that's a good day to plan it out. Again, it's not an emergency situation. This is not the sort of thing that will keep oxygen flowing to your aunt in the hospital. So you don't need to do this right away. Pick a day and make sure that you can get this done the way you want it done.
If you're a developer, you need to update because you're making apps for these systems. If not, you're doing it because you want to, and then it depends on your pain tolerance and your nerd level and all the other factors.
All right, we're going to take a break. Come back. There's lots more to talk about. We'll do a speed round with some of the big stories, including China hijacking iCloud users. But first, a word from Squarespace, the place we go to make our Inside Twit blog. Many of you go. It is the best web hosting, plus the best content management system, software and hosting tightly integrated to give you a remarkable experience, the best place to make your next website. You don't have to be a guru of web technologies to appreciate Squarespace, although if you are, they have a great developer platform. I think you'll just be able to tell if you look at the templates that they are kind of the most beautiful templates. They're constantly improving the platform, too, with new features, new designs, better support, and all of that happens automatically because they have both the software and the hosting. You'll start, if you click the Get Started button on squarespace.com, you'll start with 25 beautiful templates, all of which have, you know, the latest state-of-the-art features built in, you know, full bleed photos if you want, mobile responsive design, so you don't have to worry about what size screen. It looks great on any size screen, iPhone to 30-inch display to 5K display. Actually, that's going to be pretty important, isn't it, going forward? You want to make sure your site looks good on 5K. Squarespace does. Every site has e-commerce built in. They have some great tools. The logo creator tool is so cool. You have access to all the Google fonts, more than 300. And even though everything's incredibly easy to use, if you want some help, Squarespace has live chat and email support 24/7 from their offices. They don't outsource this. And plus, there's a completely redesigned customer help site for access to self-help articles, workshops, the things like that. E-commerce for every site. You can take donations on any template. That's great for nonprofits or cash wedding registries, school fund drives. It's inexpensive, starts about $8 a month, includes a free domain name when you sign up for a year. Really is great for a bride and groom planning their wedding. That's what Mike's son and new daughter-in-law did. They had a great site on Squarespace. Really loved that. And $8 a month, you can keep it going and keep taking those donations. They have apps for iPad and iPhone, the Metric app, the Blog app, the Portfolio app for photographers. Hosting includes everything you need to get a great experience and more importantly, your visitors, your customers, to get a great experience. I want you to try it now. 2-week trial is there, right there. Just click the Get Started button. When you decide to sign up, all I ask is you use the offer code MacBreak at that point, and you'll get 10% off and be showing your support for the show, and we like that. Starts at $8 a month, including the domain name free when you sign up for a year. Squarespace.com. Get started right now and use MacBreak when you decide to buy for 10% off. So Apple has finally acknowledged something that's been going on for a couple of days. When the iPhone started being sold in China, we're not sure who did this, but it seems to be the Chinese government. According to greatfire.org, which is a nonprofit monitoring group that monitors China's Great Firewall, it looks like Chinese authorities were using a man-in-the-middle attack to harvest Apple IDs, iCloud IDs from Chinese users. When you went to iCloud.com in China, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, you'd get a site that looked like iCloud.com exactly, but it wasn't. You'd be handing your iCloud credentials over to whoever was doing this, presumably Chinese authorities, and then getting into iCloud. Most browsers would say there's a certificate error. If you're using Safari or Chrome, you'd see a certificate error, or Firefox. In China, unfortunately, the most popular browser is called Qihoo, and it does not have that warning. So most Chinese users probably wouldn't know that their credentials are being harvested. Apple finally has made a comment in a support document. They have confirmed they are aware of, quote, the intermittent organized network attacks, end quote, on iCloud users. They're very cautious. They don't want to say it's China. We can't really be sure it's China, although the documentation provided at greatfire.org seems pretty conclusive. Here's the quote: Apple is deeply committed to protecting our customers' privacy and security. We're aware of intermittent organized network attacks using insecure certificates to obtain user information. It's a man in the middle. We take this very seriously. These attacks don't compromise iCloud servers, and they don't impact iCloud sign-in on iOS devices because you're using Safari there, or Macs running Yosemite using Safari. But you need to make sure you're using browsers that monitor and will warn you if it's an invalid certificate. And if you see that certificate, you shouldn't proceed. They do have a way you can verify it even if you're using the Qihoo browser. Nobody's saying it's the Chinese government, but I think it's pretty clear that it is. And China does not really want, Apple does really not want to piss off China at this point. So they're just saying, man, we notice this is happening.
And if you want to look at this in a positive light, that's good advice for anybody who's using iCloud on any service, because if it's a vulnerability in China, it's probably a vulnerability everywhere.
Well, in fact, they're attacking Microsoft as well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Gmail, Google.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Although it is an interesting question. I don't think that Apple would ever compromise the safety of its users to protect a business relationship with a government, but they would certainly be have to put a lot of effort into figuring out what goal do we want to achieve in responding to this, and what is the best solution that protects our users, gets the message out there, and yet doesn't unnecessarily set fires where we don't need fires to be set right now.
I mean, you can pretty much assume that, I mean, I'm going to read between the lines, but it makes sense that the iPhone's out. Chinese authorities note that it's very hard to get into the material on the iPhone. So what better way to do it than to compromise somebody's iCloud login information? Then you always have access to their iCloud backups, and you can read those.
Well, we remember with BlackBerries, they wanted to put up squid servers to intercept the traffic because they couldn't get into the Knox system.
Right.
So that's,
this is
how they operate.
Not a surprise.
Yeah.
And there are ways, if you're significant, the real problem is if you're a non-sophisticated user. Sophisticated users will immediately recognize what's going on and fix it.
Yeah.
And you're right, Andy. This applies to everybody. If you see that error, you should bail.
Yeah.
I'm getting a Retina iMac, the 5K iMac on Friday, so we'll have a review next Tuesday.
Mine's taking longer to get here.
Did you see it when you were at the event?
Yes.
Tell me.
I did.
Tell me, do.
Leo, I wanted to dive inside and live there. Which is ridiculously beautiful. The blacks are so black. The colors are beautiful. They're doing this wizardry because if you don't externalize the connector, you don't have to follow the standard. You're free to break the rules. So they're taking two of the DisplayPort 1.2s and putting them together in their custom timing controller, and that lets them push all those 5K of pixels. I didn't see any stuttering. I didn't see any slowdown. They went all the way through iPhoto. They went through Final Cut Pro, and it was just glorious. Great angles of view. I wanted one immediately.
Oh, and you ordered one.
Yeah. With the bumped up in graphics card, because I do worry about the Retina attacks whenever there's a new Retina machine. So I got the faster graphics.
I was buying it for my sweetheart, not myself. So I bumped it up all the way. I turned all the knobs to 11.
So the one thing about this is that a lot of people bought Mac Pros hoping to get an Apple 5K display.
Yeah, I'm kind of pissed.
Now, well, but Apple can't make a 5K display because not only is Broadwell not shipped yet, but Broadwell's not going to support it. You have to wait till Skylake, I think, which is going to have Thunderbolt 3 on it. And by the time that comes out, the Mac Pro that you have still won't have Thunderbolt 3 on it. So it's not a great situation for that.
And Marco Arment wrote a great piece on his marco.org site. Which kind of depressed me because basically he's saying, I'm thinking I should sell my Mac Pro and buy the Retina iMac.
Guy English called it his cylinder of shame.
I'm hearing that from a lot of folks. But what a lot of people the reasons why people bought a Mac Pro are easily covered by a Retina iMac and in many ways exceeded by a Retina iMac. Given that if you have a Mac Pro that doesn't have drive bays in it, then you start, then what do I need it for? Do it. Get a good backbeat going. Hit the road.
Well, no, Leo, if you want to do video editing, you're still better off with the Mac.
I'm not doing video editing. I just wanted a 4K display. I have 3 monitors, 2 27s, and a 4K display.
You can't do that with the new Mac. The iMac can only drive one 4K display, Leo. It won't suit your 3 display.
You know what's really disappointing? I can't even buy the new iMac and hook it up to my Mac Pro and get a 5K display.
No, because there's no Thunderbolt 3 out yet.
Right. Yeah.
Also, as Marco points out, it has the fastest single-core processor available. It's a 4 gigahertz, if you get the i7, a 4 gigahertz processor compared to that crappy E5 in my iMac Pro.
They're not even on Halo. They're not even on Haswell.
Can we do an edit in which late 2014 Leo talks to the Leo that was thrilled with the Mac Pro is the best thing ever, and of course we shouldn't be belittling the Mac Pro because the other unique feature of the Mac Pro is that the sky's the limit pretty much on cores. I mean, you can basically take a copy of the Yellow Pages, put it through a cross-cut shredder, spread it on your driveway, take 100 pictures of it, throw it to your Mac Pro, and you've got enough processing power if you've maxed it out to basically do image capture and put it all back together again. But the thing is, not a whole lot of people actually need that level of power, which is why I say that most of the people I think that were buying a Mac Pro, their needs are well served by the new iMac. So.
Not me, because I bought it for the wrong reasons.
Okay, but okay. Well, would you be happy having that 5K display behind your 60-inch HD TV if you're using it as a living room server?
Just
no,
buy
you
both,
wouldn't.
Leo. You can have the Mac Pro and the iMac. You don't have to
Exactly.
choose.
You're in the industry, man. You should. You owe it
Leo,
to
your readers.
You owe it to your. I'm sure everybody in the chat room is going to back me up on this. They're demanding that you have this.
And if not, I think Syracuse has a standing offer of $5 for anyone's Mac that wants to sell.
It's depressing when your girlfriend has a better Mac than
Leo,
you do.
Leo,
That's
you know
all
what?
I'm saying.
I'll double that. I'll double it.
No, I'm very happy with the Mac Pro. I love it. The thing that's kind of bugs me a little bit is in order to get that beautiful Asus 4K display on there, it uses, what is it called, MLS?
Yeah.
Where it's basically splitting it into two 1920 or whatever. MLC, that's it. Two different displays. So it doesn't, they tear.
Yeah.
And even on Yosemite, I was hoping Yosemite maybe they had, but there's no way to fix that because it's the nature of the hardware, because there's so much bandwidth being pushed out there. So,
yeah, I think there are going to be the same problems with these first generation Retina iMacs too, because there's so much stuff that Apple has never done before with this.
You're just saying that to make me feel better, Andy. I know.
I'm hoping to make you feel better, but I'm also, Leo, more importantly, I'm saying this to convince myself not to buy one, which is almost just as important.
Well, we are going to review it. I'll benchmark it. I'll bang on it. I'm going to try to prove it's not as good as my Mac
You'll
Pro.
just stare at it, Leo. You're just going to sit there staring at it.
It's that good, isn't it?
Yeah.
You couldn't do, because it was a demo, you couldn't really test its, how fast it was.
No, they were moving the mouse around, though. I mean, they were moving the pictures around, the mouse around. They were fine.
This was not the Apple Watch then? They wouldn't actually shriek if you touched it.
Can I just tell you, I turned up all the knobs, right? So I got the fastest i7. I got this was crazy, but she insisted, a terabyte SSD. I didn't put 32 gigs of RAM, which is the top. I put 16. I think 16, okay, roll the tape.
Only need 16
gigs of RAM is enough for anybody. Humans only need 16 gigs.
Yeah. I went with 16 as well.
Yeah. But turned everything else up and it was $4,000.
Yeah. It's a lot of computer.
So less than $1 per
K. But $2,500 is a remarkable deal. That's basically the computer's free.
Yeah, but is that going to be really useful? Is that going to make people happy?
Well, that's what had I really been smart, that's what I should have bought for review purposes to see, well, what is the base model?
I mean, the Mac Pro, they managed to get the price down to a level where they could say it's that inexpensive, but it's also possible to buy a Tesla S for what, $6,100, but nobody spent $61,000 on a Tesla S.
Now, people have been waiting for Retina Macs, and I forget who said this, but whenever you're waiting for a long time, you just buy the maxed out version.
Yeah, why not?
Never go grocery shopping while you're hungry.
So Marco's bottom line, who is the Mac Pro for? At this point, he says, not a lot of people. People who heavily use OpenCL apps. That's graphics professionals, video and 3D graphics professionals. People needing as much parallel CPU power as possible for rendering or video editors, and who can afford 8 or 12 cores, because I only got the 6-core. Anyone using a lot of Thunderbolt devices, because they're 4 or 6 Thunderbolt ports on it.
Yeah, and 2 buses, I think, which is important because you want the full bandwidth.
Right. Anyone who needs a lot of monitors, well, maybe I qualify. An HDMI output or 2 built-in network interfaces. I don't need that. People who need the quietest computer possible under any load. And I'll agree on that. The Mac Pro is, I can't believe how quiet it is. It's so quiet that the external hard drive I have attached to it is making a racket, a ruckus. I have to turn it off so I can just... Roles in which a kernel panic or other slight hardware glitch may be very costly. What he's saying, that one is a little... I need to gloss that, which is because it's a new device and it's not using this, top-of-the-line ECC memory and all that. It may be a little less robust. Maybe once a year you'll have a kernel panic.
You have enterprise chips and enterprise RAM in the Mac Pro.
Right.
Yeah.
The list keeps getting shorter over time. I think I finally fell off it. So Marco, who has, I think, a little bit of money, but also is a developer, not a videographer. He's writing a new podcast app right now. I think I think he's kind of right. I think you know.
Yeah.
That's all right. If you're going to be a leader, you got to take some arrows in the back.
There you go.
Why are the people behind me shooting at me?
It's also fun to watch how we all have to make transitions as to what we expect from a top of the line, really powerful computer.
Right.
It took me a stupid long time before I switched to my MacBook as my primary computer, because I had programmed myself to believe that a computer is a desktop box that's shaped like this with a stack of other boxes on top of it, and the PowerBook is the thing that I just use to go out and do field excursions with. And after it must have been 2 or 3 or 4 years of, no, actually my laptop is way more powerful than my desktop. I should actually be moving everything onto this. And it really was just that little bit of mental twist I had to do. I think a lot of people are having that same thing where I don't rely on an iMac. The iMac is the family computer. I'm a professional.
By the way, on Yosemite and iOS 8, there was some concern that the Spotlight suggestions feature. By the way, I stopped using Quicksilver, Alfred, any of those. Just Command Plus. I love the new Spotlight search. I just start typing. It will not only launch a program or a document, but it will search for movies, showtimes, locations nearby. It'll search my iTunes, the App Store. I mean, it's great. It's great. But there's some concern that some of that information is being sent back to the home office. So, Rene, you've written an article at imore.com, came out yesterday. Tell us, is there a privacy concern, and what should we know is going on here?
It's easiest to make an analogy. So, for example, if you're using Siri, it's providing convenience, and convenience, like Steve Gibson always says, is the opposite of security and privacy. So, in order to get answers from Siri, you've got to give it information. And the new Spotlight is not identical to, but it's very similar to a typewritten form of Siri. You're inputting things there, and it's trying to do all these helpful things. And part of that is based on your location. Part of that is based on like the sequential inference Siri does, where if you type in, I think the example they used is cafe and then phone number, it's going to be predisposed to help you find phone numbers for a cafe because that was your recent pattern. And to do all that, it has to do similar things to Siri. And that is to go to the network and try to do some intelligence to parse it back down. Apple explains this fully. If you go to the settings on iOS, or if you go to the system preferences on the Mac and you tap on what is Spotlight suggestions, it tells you exactly what it is. The security document covers how it does this. For example, it has a unique ID for 15 minutes, then destroys it. It doesn't save anything in between these sessions. It does a ton of stuff to try to maintain as much privacy. It blurs location, which is more effective if you're in a sparsely populated area than a densely populated area. But it's basically things like this. So you're gaining all this functionality, but at the expense of Apple having to do a little bit of processing on the server. Some people would have preferred for it to be opt-in instead of opt-out, but there's some concern, I think, at Apple and everywhere that we're getting pop-up fatigue, that when you set up, there's far too many windows already. When you launch something, there's far too many pop-ups already. And I'm not speaking for Apple because I don't know, but my thinking is that, Maps knows your location because it's giving you locations. We're all used to Siri now. So they're assuming that if you're getting these services, that it's a two-way street and you can go turn it off if you want to.
So when you first hit Command Space, you'll get the Spotlight search, but you also get the information you're looking for and a link to this document, which explains exactly what's going on and says if you don't want your search queries and Spotlight suggestions usage data sent to Apple, you can turn it off. And then they have a link right there. So I don't think Apple could do this any better, frankly. And I think it's not unreasonable to assume that if you're asking for movie times, your computer doesn't know that. No. It has to go query somebody.
It doesn't know it has to find out where you are so it can provide the movie times near you, not in Nova Scotia or somewhere.
Yeah. So I think you can assume that users are not going to be completely, what?
And I think Spotlight is one of the best features of Yosemite. It's the thing that I keep coming back to, and I just love it for exactly the reasons we've been talking about. That it's I've always been a little bit bummed out that the Finder is still pretty much the Finder that I've been using since 1984, and I do so much of my life. My interface with the Mac is just through launching things through Spotlight. And now that it can actually be that one box that will figure out what I want it to do and then figure out how to do that, I want to see that. I just want to see them build upon it and build upon it and build upon it until it far exceeds what Siri can do.
Good. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
It was just unfortunate the Washington Post did an article on it that sort of made it sound all panicky and scary. And,
this is it's link bait as far as I'm concerned. Even the Post should know better. Of course, remember who owns the Washington Post now, but it's link bait. Jeff Jarvis calls it moral panic, where the new technology, children and women, watch out. And
they scare you instead of educating you.
Yeah, and the Journal does it. It seems like the New York Times has been doing it. Respected journals that should know better need to do a better job of education and not do this scare stuff. It's just, but it sells, clicks or papers or whatever it is.
Well, we transact in a currency that's far more valuable, and that is the listener's trust.
We care. Yes, we do. Couple of articles.
We might drive cars with 173,000 miles on them, but we have integrity and windows that don't really roll up, so we have to tape up the window. But still, we have integrity.
Have integrity. A couple of articles I'm going to recommend you read, ladies and gentlemen. I already told you about local man uses Apple Pay. That's at Jason Snell's new home, 6colors.com. Excellent article in the Business Insider. I mentioned it on Twit. Dave Smith tells the story of how Seth Weintraub founded 9to5Mac while he was stranded in Paris, and how he found Mark Gurman and how he pays them. And it's just, if you're, we quote 9to5Mac, especially Mark, all the time now, because they're just really good. By the way, they quote you in the story.
I don't think I came off as neutral. I get along really well with Mark and Seth, so I'm decidedly happier than neutral.
Yeah. You don't mind how effective 9to5Mac is. You're in competition with them, but you have
even competition is strong. I'm more than happy for Mark to do all that stuff. It only benefits me. I mean,
well, you know what?
I do other stuff.
We had Steve Kovac, who's the editor, executive editor there, or senior editor at Business Insider. You know what he said? He said one of the reasons people like Gurman can do well, they have no fear. They're 20. And they don't care. He said Mark Gurman will never get invited to an Apple event, and he doesn't care. And so there's a certain advantage when you're, say, 15, 16 years old, as Gurman was when he started. You don't mind biting the establishment's hand because, you're a kid.
I wouldn't put it that way. It's more like, I think everybody who wants to have a career, or wants to, at least for this year, do a good job. The great thing about this line of work is that we get to decide what kind of job we want to do. And if my job does not require me to be able to tell a month in advance exactly what Apple's going to be announcing in October, so I've never bothered cultivating those kind of resources. I don't have, if I tripped my fell ass backward into hardcore information like that, I might even be more prone to simply hand it to somebody else who has more experience in confirming and exploiting stuff like that. It's not Mark is really great at that. He obviously has a great interest in it. So he gets to define the job that he wants to do and how best he can serve his users. And he's obviously serving his readers very, very well.
Yeah, and we're very happy to repeat his scoops where he is often accurate.
Exactly.
But like you, Andy,
let's circle back for just 1 second. That's exactly the point. The fact that it's not that he has these scoops, it's that he has these scoops and he is consistently shown to be correct.
Right.
And that's the sort of, we joke about, I was joking about how, oh yes, we've got integrity, but really that's the thing you really want to build, that a relationship with an audience that over the years, people know that, well, if Andy said this, or if Mark said this, or if Leo said this, this is what I assume is about this is what I believe about this information, and for them to believe that this is good information to have because this is this person's track record in talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I don't get invited to Apple events either, but it's not because I want to keep on Apple's good side that I don't do that stuff. It's just not. It's like you. It's not my beat. I like to talk about what you can get today and how it's going to impact your life and how you use it and stuff like that. But God bless Mark Gurman and the others who are so good at getting these scoops and accurately, because it's fun to know ahead of time and think about it and speculate about it. And our audience certainly cares. So great article, recommend it. And then the other one that we also talked about on Sunday, but I want to recommend again. Judith Newman's article in the New York Times, To Siri with Love, How One Boy with Autism Became BFF with Apple's Siri. And it's really pretty sweet story by Gus's mother. And he talks to Siri, says things like, "You're a really nice computer." Siri says, "It's nice to be appreciated. You're always asking if you can help me. Is there anything you want? Thank you, but I have very few wants. You got to pat the Siri programmers in the back for this stuff.
It's amazing. My godson, when he was 3 years old, would use Siri to send and receive iMessages. He couldn't read, he couldn't write, but he could totally engage in dialogue. It was phenomenal. It's incredibly inclusive and accessible.
Gus goes, okay, well, good night. Siri goes, it's 5:06 p.m. Gus says, oh, sorry, I meant goodbye. See you later. I mean, I know that this is written, it's hard-coded in and all of that, but pretty cool.
But that's always been the goal, that none of us are under any impression that Siri is a real person inside our phones, but it is designed so that we maintain this emotional connection to it. And that doesn't mean that this becomes like her or anything like that, but you feel as though this is a piece of information that I would need to get, and I trust this voice and this personality to give it to me. And I'm also going to enjoy the process of finding out what 120% of $49.12 is, rather than simply launching a tip calculator to get that calculation.
She writes, one of all the worries the parent of an autistic child has, the uppermost is, will he find love or even companionship? Somewhere along the line, I am learning that what gives my guy happiness is not necessarily the same as what gives me happiness. Right now, at his age, a time when humans can be a little overwhelming even for the average teenager, Siri makes Gus happy. She is his sidekick. I think that's just so sweet. So if you haven't read that, that was in the Sunday paper, Sunday New York Times. It's just great. You can read it online as well.
It's terrific.
Yeah, really.
All the accessibility technologies they're doing are amazing in many different ways.
It really is impressive. All right, let's take a break. We got to get your picks, and then Security Now is coming up in just a few minutes, so I want to get to that. Shutterstock.com, our sponsor for this portion of MacBreak Weekly. With over 42 million, actually I should go to Shutterstock because they had more than 250,000 every week. So every time I do this ad, it's more. The last time I checked, it was, let's see, it's 43,553,518 royalty-free stock images, 300,000 added this week alone. That's just the images at Shutterstock.com. Go there, click the footage tab. You'll see beautiful images, high-def video, 2.1 million of those. And now they've got music. They've got stock audio clips as well, high-quality tracks. And these are everything they do. And by the way, you could sort it by mood, by genre, by tempo, even beats per minute. Isn't that cool? And all of this stuff is what we call royalty-free. That means you buy it and you can use it on your blog, your podcast, your movie. I see movies all the time now that I'm aware of it, where they'll be in the credits thanks to Shutterstock.com. For the blue sky footage or whatever. It's pretty amazing. I want you to visit Shutterstock.com. You don't have to have a credit card to sign up for an account. I would recommend you do sign up for that free account because you'll get free content every week. Plus, you'll have the ability to save images to the Lightbox, share the Lightbox with other people. Try out those amazing search tools that let you search by subject, by color, by palette, so you can match it to your palette of your blog or your magazine, your file type, gender, emotion. Yeah, emotion. I love Shutterstock. They have a beautiful iPad app, Webby Award-winning. They now have an Android app as well. So what I'd like you to do is just sign up for the free account. You don't need a credit card for that. But if you do decide to buy, I've got a great deal for you. If you're looking at one of the image subscription packages, for instance, we have the 25 images a day package. That's suitable for a publication. But if you want to buy a subscription package, you're going to get 20% off if you use our offer code MacBreak1014. That's Shutterstock.com. 20% off any image subscription package on a new account when you use the offer code MacBreak1014. Just browse around and have some fun. Shutterstock.com. Time for our pick of the week. Let's start with Rene Ritchie.
I have two small ones, and I say small only because the new extensibility and widget features make it seem like they're little applications, but they can still do big things. The first one is Flare Effects, and it's an app that's been updated by the Icon Factory. Previously, if you wanted to work on, they are terrific. They do Twitterific and a bunch of other great apps, Xscope, so many great apps. Previously, you had to actually leave photos, go open up another app, work on it, save it, go back. It was arduous, but now extensibility means that all the filters go straight into the Photos app. And you can, on iOS at least, it's basically you download the app, it tells you a little bit about it, but then all the functionality lives in the Photos app. On the Mac, it's still an app, but basically it lets you do things sort of like other filter apps, but with typical icon factory, awesome interface and very tasteful filters. So it's just a really nice way to take advantage of all the new photo functionality that has come to iOS 8 and to some extent to Yosemite. We'll have to wait till the Photos app launches to get all of it. But it's excellent if you just want to make your photos look really good. And both Craig Hockenberry and Gideon Mayhood, everyone at the Icon Factory, has been posting images using this, and they look really, really good.
The neat thing about this, I know it's kind of cheating, but you're just you get addicted to the praise you get from people who say, oh, you're a great photographer. Oh, that's a great image. And you go, yeah, don't tell anybody. You just, you use Flare and you just dress it up.
And it saves images. Like you can use the effects to make an image that's not exactly what you wanted and maybe you wouldn't have posted. You can just save it enough that you're willing to put it up there. And that's a memory you can't get back.
Right. I mean, I'm not kidding. You could take a crap photo and make it good with and you go, oh, wow. I mean, I like the tilt shift. That's really fun to play with.
Yeah, and especially if you're just going to, but if you're going to post to Instagram or a social network where it's on the screen, you don't need the huge resolution.
Now, this is a desktop app, $15. Oh, it's both. Yeah. So you can get Flare as well on iOS.
Yeah, and on iOS, again, on iOS 8, it just lives inside the Photo app. Once you download it, it tells you how to use it, but then you go to the Photos app and you press the button and the extensions just come up.
I'm getting that.
So convenient.
Yeah.
The other one is also really small. It's I've been a longtime fan of iStat, which is the thing that lets you know all about your computer. And I'm a friend of Mark Edwards, but I was buying his software long before I met him. And now he's got iStat Mini, which is a version of the iStat menu system, but it just lives in the notification center Today view on Yosemite. So instead of having to go and look at all the different dials, you can just see the 3 most common ones right there. So you can see your processor load and your available disk space. All you do is swipe the notification center Today view comes out, you take a quick glance at it, you get the information you need, and you close it again. And it really is that sort of glanceable thing that I think the thing I like about how iOS is doing it is that it's not on a home screen. It's not on a dashboard. It's not on a separate page. You don't have to, again, leave what you're doing, go and find it. You just swipe and either notification center comes down from iOS or across on Yosemite, and it's right where you are. You look and then you go back. And I think glanceability will be the same thing on the watch. But it's all about pushing interface to where we are so we don't have to go hunting around anymore. And I think we're going to see a lot of really exciting stuff because of that.
By the way, it's Flare Effects by the Icon Factory.
Yes.
If you're searching on iOS, there's another thing called Flare. It seems like it's free on iOS. Is that maybe it's in-app purchases?
Yeah, I believe so. I've been using the free version, although if I knew I could give them money, I would certainly have done so.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Andy Ihnatko, your picks of the week.
2 things. One is that NASA in the past week opened a SoundCloud page, and they're loading it up with just like clips of like mission dialogue and rocket sounds and historical speeches and just like chatter between the ground and the Apollo and space shuttle and all this sort of stuff. And I found the link, I opened the link, I played the first one just to hear it, and then I found myself just like listening to the entire load from the start to finish.
That's my favorite. Yep. That's from the Mercury series, but there's President Kennedy, there's Apollo. This is a great one.
And there's sounds that's just like
there's rockets.
Good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless all of you. All of you. All of you on the good earth.
What is it about these? I tear up. I love these.
Exactly. Because thousands of people helped 3 people get 250,000 miles away, and an incredible thing that this animal that we are not supposed to do.
Yeah. So it's free. It's soundcloud.com/NASA, and if you have a SoundCloud account, you can add them, follow them, and get new stuff when they put new stuff up.
It's just amazing. It's like I spotted at least 11 ringtones.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because the music is boring. Just give me that Sally Ride say that's a real e-ticket. Like, okay, thank you.
It's just great stuff.
So for non-inspirational, non-story things, Amazon is now taking orders on the Kindle Voyage. Pre-orders are starting to ship right now, and it is the best e-reader that Amazon has ever made, which means that, in my opinion, it's the best e-reader that exists. there are a lot of little tweaks they've done. The hallmark ones are that they've increased the density of the screen to 300 dots per inch from 212. Now the dots are so small you just can't see them, and it's just almost a demonic effect when you just see these clearly printed pages shifting before your very eyes. They've increased the contrast too, so the effect is even better. They've also redesigned it so that there's no longer like that gap, that little divot. Excuse me, the bezel is no longer raised around the display. It's now one flat sheet of glass, so it's very familiar to people who are using phones and tablets. But also they've put, if you can see on the sides here, now they're pressure sensitive buttons for page forward and back on both sides of the screen, so it works if you're lefty or righty. So now instead of having to like mark up the screen and be doing this and be tapping and squeezing on different sides, you can just like hold this very, very comfortably with one hand and just give it a very gentle tap or a very gentle squeeze. There is a silent haptic buzz underneath your figure to confirm that you've done a page turn. And overall, it's and I won't go through all of the different features because there's all kinds of really cool exploration and information services that are attached to each of these books and all the content in there. But overall, it's just so much more pleasant to read a book on this or even a Kindle Paperwhite than on an iPad, by the virtue of the fact that this was designed to only be a book reader. So it's not big, it's not heavy, it's not shiny. It works great in all kinds of light that you can actually use. And kind of reminded me, I haven't read a book on a Kindle since the last time I had to review a Kindle. And it kind of made me think that, gee, maybe I should buy one of these for myself, because I read The Martian from cover to cover for the first time on this device last week as I was reviewing this, and cannot remember the last time that I enjoyed reading as much as I enjoyed this experience. And I read lots of books on my iPad all the time. It's not the iPad or the Android tablets or phones. It's not like they're bad devices, but they're designed to do a lot of different things, among them being to run a book reader app. This is designed to absolutely pander to and kiss the butt of anybody who loves to read. And it's so much better in every way. It's not cheap. It's $200, the cheaper version of it, compared to I think $120 for the Kindle Paperwhite, which in itself is still not a bad reader. It doesn't replace it. It adds to the Kindle product line. It doesn't replace it. But boy, if you've got an extra $80 in your pocket for an ebook reader, the extra resolution on that display just pushes this over the cliff.
So crisp. Also, the page turn is much faster and not nearly as annoying.
Yeah, and when you type on the on-screen keyboard, it's still an e-ink display, so it can't quite keep up with you. But
a lot better.
But it feels like, and this will sound like a slam, but it isn't. It feels like a first generation Android device. Right. So it's not as good as as a modern iPhone, but you can you're not focusing on tap, wait for the register, tap for the. You can actually go tap 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 tap.
It's usable.
And you can go through it. You can even like select and extend selection as you drag, because it still has a full touch screen on it,
right?
And it will keep up with your dragging. And they worked out the stuff that I didn't like about, or at least that I thought underperformed even with the Kindle Paperwhite, and they even improved the things that I liked about the Kindle Paperwhite. And there's just nothing like this if you do like to read stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. And it's interesting to see the integration of Goodreads. I hadn't seen the new Kindle in a while. And Goodreads, which was a social reading network that Amazon acquired a couple of years ago, now is a big part of it. So I just sign up to follow a few people and review some of the books that I've read, and that really is nice. That
I mean, a regular ding against Amazon products like the Kindle Fire is that, oh well, look, it's all set up to encourage you to buy more things from Amazon, and that's certainly true. But in a device like this, is that really a bad thing? It means that when I was done reading The Martian, it was very, very easy for me to just simply in Goodreads rate the book, share a couple of notes about it, and then immediately see what are I want a new book to read. What are my friends reading? And then here's like 9 really good candidates. Ooh, this one that Scott McNulty just finished reading looks really cool. Click on that, read the description. Great, I'll buy that. And then $10 later, it's now on the device, and it's easy to chain smoke books on this, because this will help you find the next book you want to read and then acquire it very, very easily and very, very simply.
It's kind of like you feel like a reader when you have this.
You feel like you should be. You want to like go on to Amazon and see how much like a pipe costs. No tobacco. You just want it to be. I
already have the smoking jacket, so. I'm halfway there.
If they got self-adhesive leather patches you can just put on your T-shirt. Because I'm not just a reader. I'm a reader who reads.
I read the books that I read. Thank you, Andy Ihnatko, Chicago Sun-Times. Always a pleasure. Andy was with us during the launch of the new iPads. You can see his commentary on our specials feed, twit.tv/specials. And, of course, he joins us every week at this time for MacBreak Weekly. Always a pleasure.
Don't you go changing.
Don't go
try to please me.
Andy is also on the 5x5 network at Ihnatko's Almanac. He reads old columns there, too, which is fun. Rene Ritchie is at imore.com. Follow the Debug podcast there if you want to keep up on everything Macintosh, everything Apple. And he writes like crazy. They've got a Yosemite hub there, an iOS 8.1 hub. Both I recommend before you upgrade and after you upgrade. They're really good stuff. You've really done a great job up there in the frozen north. Thank you. Is he unfrozen? Good, he's unfrozen.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you, Rene. Great to have you. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC on twit.tv. If you want to watch live, we'd love it. But if you can't, it's not a big deal. We always make on-demand versions of everything we do available after the fact. Go to twit.tv/MBW for this show, twit.tv/MBW. You can also subscribe on Stitcher and podcast apps. We've got, thanks to our third-party developers who've really been nice to us, we've got some great apps on all the platforms, including iOS. Just search for Twit. And subscribe if you can. That way you'll see us each and every week. If you'd like to join us in studio, as 4 very nice people have, then all you have to do is email tickets@twit.tv and we'll put a chair out for you. Notice there are exactly 4 chairs out. It's an amazing thing. We don't make you play musical chairs when you visit our studio. In beautiful Petaluma, California, an hour north of San Francisco. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Remember, it's time to get back to work because break time is over. See you later. Bye-bye.